Whatever it is we're shooting, take one.
Well, in true California, San Francisco fashion, or in true San Francisco, California fashion, the weather has dropped
Yes.
significantly.
Yes, in 5 minutes.
Yeah. So part of the reason why I wanted to come and have this conversation with you here is because, one, we get to see this beautiful Ferris wheel,
Yes.
but two, it reminded me about perspective.
Hmm.
And so when you think about the Ferris wheel, and when you think about perspective and introspective dynamics, what comes to mind?
Ooh, perspective. I always look at perspective in interesting ways, like a sphere instead of a linear spot. So depending on where you're at is what you can see, and then where you move to is what you're able to see. And ideally, you'd like to be in the center of the sphere, but that never happens. So your perspective is based on the information and the knowledge that you have and that you've been given to work with. But over the horizon, there's always more.
Yeah, I think what I like about this is that, maybe there's 50 carts on the entire thing, and so each person is seeing something differently within that, even though they're sitting in the same park on the same particular ride. And I think it's really fascinating because when you get to the top, you imagine, oh, this is the best perspective here, right? But then when you're looking at the bottom, you can see more of the detail.
Yes.
Right? Whereas at the top, you just see the high level vision. So both of them have benefits and beauty. But I think when we're doing kind of that introspective work, it can be easy to get stuck in, oh man, this is the right perspective, right? Like, this is the most beautiful. When sometimes we need to move around and switch positions and look at it from a different angle, and that takes some effort.
Exactly. Well, going back to our Discordian conversation, that's a little Discordian there as well, because if we took that as truth, depending on where you're at, there's always going to be your truth versus what the real wheel of truth is. So it's an always interesting perspective of seeing where you're at, whether you're at the top or you're at the bottom, or whether you're going over and starting a cycle again. So I think there's a lot of interesting metaphors in that Ferris wheel for us with this particular conversation.
Well, when you think about it in relationship to some of the different concepts that we'll talk about in the program, like, what do you want people to know about perspective taking as they're moving through the program?
Not to take things too seriously, first of all, because again, if you're going around everywhere you're at, you're going to think it's the best perspective. If you take it too seriously, you kind of lose perspective. So I think that's probably the first and foremost, is not being too serious. The second is, again, just kind of rolling with it, like seeing what comes and what information comes to you and how you then assess that information, because there can be a lot of different things coming your way. So it's how you filter it, but also then how you want to work within the information of the new perspective.
Yeah. What I love about your comment around don't take it too seriously, it's like, yes, that's a ride, but there's also high stakes. Like, you falling from the top one is very different than you falling from the bottom.
Exactly.
Right? And I think as we're navigating personal lives and professional lives and career transitions and all those things, it can feel like, oh my God, this is such high stakes and it's life or death. And on some ways it really is, because it might be tied to your finances or your relationships. But there is also that perspective of like, how do I find the humor in this, or how do I look for the goodness in this,
Exactly.
or the ease in this? And when you're caught up in the swirl, it can be hard to do it. But I think that's one of the pieces that we're asking people to flex, is how can you find the good in it? How can you find the humor as you move through some of the more challenging pieces.
Exactly. I like how you use the word swirl, because oftentimes perspective, you're caught up in the swirl and you can't actually get perspective. So to be able to identify the swirl and then get to the outer edge of it so you can look in at it is also another way to find perspective. And that again is one of those challenges, because when you're in it, you're in it. And it seems like the all or nothing. So I'm hoping not only through what we're teaching our clients, but also the work that they do, they have the ability to swim to the outer edge to then take a look back and see, what the chaos is and how to navigate that.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the benefits of having the Marco Polo app be a part of this process, because now you can get different perspectives from your cohort and your newfound friends, because they might empathize with you, but they might also see some things that we don't see.
Exactly.
And so it's nice to have people that you're close to, or you're building relationships and trust, who can give you a little bit more of an objective view, because sometimes it feels like, oh, there's no way out, when people might say, well, there's this little hole down here, but it might mean you have to get down on your hands and knees and crawl out
Right.
versus walk out, where that's what you initially wanted to do.
Well said. Well said. Well, I think that's some great points on perspective and where we're going and what we're showing our clients and what we're showing ourselves, for that matter. It's like how we navigate our own perceptions and perspective on a day-to-day basis.
Anything else about perspective?
I think that covers it. All right, so we look forward to hearing your comments on Marco Polo.
See you soon.